Welcome everyone to yet another session of our ongoing series, Own and Be It, here at UinDhi. And today we are welcoming back Sri Nithin Sridhar, who has been with us as a guest in last year on our series, The Dive and the Driver. And it's always a pleasure to welcome him back. So Nithin Sridhar has a degree in civil engineering, and having worked in the construction field, he passionately writes about various issues from development, politics, and social issues to religion, spirituality, and ecology. He is currently the chief curator of Advaita Academy, a video portal dedicated to the dissemination of Advaita Vedanta. He is also a consulting editor to the Indic Today Magazine. He was formerly the editor of IndiaFacts, a portal on Indian history and culture. He is the author of 6 books. The first book, Musings on Hinduism, provided an overview of various aspects of Hindu philosophy and society. His books, Sri Dakshinamurti and Candrika, enunciates upon the 2 prominent deities of Hinduism. His book, Samanya Dharma, gives an overview of the general tenets of ethics as available in Hindu texts. However, his most widely read book is Menstruation Across Cultures, a historical perspective that examines menstruation notions and practices prevalent in different cultures and religions from across the world. He's based in the beautiful city of Mysore, Karnataka, and he tweets at NKG Rock. And I will put a link of all the books that he has written when I post this video so that you can go and find his books and read them because they are really engaging and they are absolutely full of information. And today we are here to discuss his new book, which is also his virtual background, which is the Ishopanishad or the Isha Upanishad, however you would like to pronounce it, an English commentary. And I thought this book was absolutely brilliant and a magnificent piece of work. So welcome back, Nithin, and we are so happy to have you.
Thank you, Tapashri. I'm very happy to be here and share my views and thoughts with you.
Yeah, thank you. So let's start at the very start. So what was last time when we spoke, you said that you were going to translate and you were in the process of translating. So is this the translation work that you were talking about?
Yes, in a sense, this book was supposed to be my first book. I started working on it back in 2012-13, but it for some reason it got stuck again and again and again, and so finally after our last conversation, I thought I should at that time I thought it is time to get this out. So why delay it further? So I was just polishing then, and I edited them and made certain changes, and finally brought it out. The book was supposed to come out last year during Deepavali itself, but due to certain delays, it got postponed, and then COVID and everything, and so finally it came out. I think a month and a half back.
Brilliant. And so what was the motivation behind picking this particular, like picking the Isha Upanishad?
This was more of a result of my own study of the Vedanta per se. In a sense, a few things happened in a coincidentally simultaneous manner. On one hand, I have a journey in the sense of a life arc, and from being an atheist to rediscovering my Hindu roots, and then rediscovering sadhana and Vedanta. So from a sadhana perspective, I came from a more of a Shakta view of things, and not really Vedantic view. But my family belongs to the Smarta Sampradaya, the Vedanta Sampradaya of Shankaracharya. So I had a fascination for this, so it so happened that in 2011, 2012, I came across a series of lectures, videos, in form of videos. I came across a series of lectures delivered by Sri Jagadguru Bharati Tirtha Swamigal of Sringeri, Sharda Peetham. So that kind of gave me my proper introduction to Advaita Vedanta. So whatever misconceptions, whatever prejudices, so to speak, biases I had or misgivings I had regarding Vedanta, so that kind of got cleared when that was a series of 10 or 12 lectures. So at that time, on internet through in the Facebook, there was a discussion with a friend of mine, on Isha Upanishad. Basically, I had not read the text per se,
Hmm.
but the discussion was basically about how Adi Shankaracharya interprets the text differently, how Sri Aurobindo interprets it differently, and so I kind of got into a debate and discussion on that. So this then led me to kind of, I thought, I mean, everybody has an opinion, that is fine. Even there is nothing, I can also have an opinion, but let me study the text and see. So, textually speaking, this was the first Vedanta text I actually studied. Everybody starts with Prakarana Granthas and then goes to, Upanishad. That is a formal format. They don't jump to Upanishad, but in many ways, my journey has been kind of different. So, I started with this Upanishad straight away, and for many months, I was back in construction then. So I used to get up in the morning at 4 and study the one of the verses, or the half of the verses, whatever I could for 1.5 2 hours, and then go to my work. And throughout the day, apart from work, I used to think, reflect upon what I studied that day. Trying to understand the text, though with the help of different commentaries and different translations and all, but still trying to arrive at my own independent understanding, so to speak. Um, uh, by Because different interesting aspect of this Upanishad is different acharyas have given it slightly different interpretation for certain particularly verse mantras number 8 to 15 or something.
Yeah.
Then slightly differently interpreted. So I try to see the various permutations and combinations of interpretation, and so that was how I was reflecting on the text. So that's why this was the first text I took, and because it had only 18 mantras, I thought I can do it, and but it took me more than 6 months to 8 months to just reflect upon this text, and then I decided, the writing was more of a my own, but to clarify my own understanding. It was rather than anything else, because I am not a very good, big scholar or anything, but I always love to write, and I have that is one skill that I developed on my own, which comes to me naturally, so to speak. So I started writing kind of a commentary and explanation, um, more for my own understanding, because when I started to write, then I realized that there are a lot of issues, more reflection is needed. So I had to pause and I had to think more, and I had to reconcile, I had to write. So that is why 2012, 2013, I wrote the first part, the actual commentary part, and then 2016, 17, I wrote the part two, and then 18 and 19, I revised the whole thing, and finally,
You have the
yeah.
So that's a beautiful journey. How so? What I really love about this book is like you give the you translate word to word meaning of the verses first, and then you go into explaining the meaning of the words in the verses, and then you also put a summary together, which kind of brings everything together. So the structure something you thought about, or was there something missing in the other texts that you felt that if you were to write it, this is how you would structure it? What was the reason for structuring it this way?
Uh, this structure was pretty much my own, the summary part at least. I mean, see, what I had in mind was a commentary. So, being a commentary, it has to be, tradition and how the Bhashya is written. It's this Padabhashya wherein word by word they give a meaning. And of course, I tried to follow that format itself, giving word by word meaning and word by word explanation. I mean, word by word meaning is one thing, but word by word detailed explanation is something else. But then I felt when I was writing this word by word explanations, there needs to be some kind of connector, some kind of summary of each verses, and how that particular verse is connected to the next verse. So that is how the summary part came about. So this was the structure, the verse and meaning, word to word meaning, and then explanation of each of the words or each of the phrases, or two or three phrases combined, which expresses particular thought and a particular idea, and then the summary. But then, after I wrote the whole thing, I realized that there is still a scope for writing, the shedding light on the deeper aspects of the underlying assumption or underlying philosophy, which is not put into words in the Upanishad, but which is assumed, so to speak, in the Upanishad. So, because I felt that when you read the text verse by verse, there is always a chance that you get lost in the words, you get lost in
Mm.
the meaning of the word, and you miss the forest for the tree. So,
Mm.
that is why I decided to write the part two, wherein
Mm.
I move beyond the limitations of the text to enunciate the philosophy of the text. I'm enunciating the philosophy of the text, but moving beyond the limitations of the word.
Mm. No, that's beautiful because that helps, like for somebody who's reading, like I have not read the original text. So for me, this was very helpful because in a way I get the original text and then I get the meaning and then I understand the summary helps me to understand and put it together. And then, so for those of you who have not bought the book yet, please go and buy the book. It's available on Amazon now. It's also available through Subu Publishers, and they are quite prompt in their response when you kind of order from them. They send you a WhatsApp message saying, we'll deliver it, and we've got the things. It's pretty nice. So coming to there are a few concepts in this. When you talk about the part two of the book, which is the philosophy of the text, I have a lot of questions. So let's kind of back up a bit and let's understand it. So you talk about dharma. Dharma comes quite a lot in this text, and it gives an example of Hinduism very clearly. So, according to you, when you were writing this and through the process, would you say that dharma has a different meaning, or is it only restricted to how we understand Hinduism as a dharma, for example? So, what are your thoughts on this?
No, see, the beauty of the concepts enunciated in what is goes by the name Hindu Dharma or Sanatan Dharma. Sanatana means perpetual, eternal. Right? So our concepts by design are universal. So this leads to a problem, in today's time, because today we have a claim. For example, take yoga.
Mm.
For example, yoga is Hindu, but yoga's teachings are universal. But now that has led to some people to claim that yoga is not Hindu.
Mm. Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah,
So
yeah,
that is a problem. That is a problem in articulation. Uh, just because our thought is universally applicable, its vision is universal, does not mean that does not have a proper origin. Its origin is in the Asha Parampara, in the Rishi Parampara, in the Acharya Parampara, which goes by the name Hindu Dharma, right?
mm,
So same here, when you speak about dharma, we are not limiting it to any particular religion, particular form or anything. Dharma means, if you return to the very basic definition, the etymological meaning, dharayati dharma, that which upholds is dharma. What is
yeah,
it upholding? It is upholding an individual, it is upholding in a society, it is upholding the entire cosmos, the universal order itself. And it has many names, Rita, Satya, Dharmas. So these are different aspects. And
mm,
my short book, Samanya Dharma, have focused more on this. But basically, Dharma is, if I have to quote one of the definitions, it is that which gives Abhyudaya and Nishreyasa. Abhyudaya is overall well-being in a material sphere, overall sphere, and Nishreyasa is one that gives you spiritual emancipation. So dharma gives you, happiness here. Dharma also takes you to eternal happiness afterwards, in
yeah,
the form of moksha. So this is the definition, and I think the notion of moksha is something which is relevant to everybody, because ultimately we are trying to find out who we are, and that knowledge is liberating. That we are Atman, we are Brahman, and uh, the non-duality is the ultimate truth. So that is liberating, and this is relevant to everybody. So it is not about just Hindu dharma. It is Hindu dharma in the sense that this our tradition, our parampara, our religion, our practices, they all have been designed. They all have evolved in a way to best express this thought, and so we have we as a Hindu dharma, as a practicing Hindu, we have a duty to uphold, to protect this thought for ourselves, for our children, for also for the world. But the value of this thought, the usefulness, utility of this thought is for everybody. Everybody can use it. We have Vedanta teachers today from Brazil, from Portuguese, from Europe. Everybody is finding some use to these thoughts.
No, that's absolutely right, because because sometimes people kind of don't want to apply because they are very boxed in the way they think about their religion, and they feel like this is my religion, it doesn't talk about this, so I'm not. But these are principles of universal principles of living a life. So coming to this very tricky concept, which most people fear, and the idea with this concept is a very fearful idea, which is called karma. So everybody thinks about karma as a negative connotation to it. And this book talks beautifully about karma. It talks about how you can, deal with it, and how you need to, what are the steps you would take to sort of, nullify the effect, or to, go through the whatever the fruits it's bearing, and so on and so forth. So, in your opinion, now that you are an author of this amazing text, how would you describe karma to somebody who's not read any of the texts, for example?
I think the very simple way to explain, understand, without any complexities, karma means action, action, and but this action refers to action that performed by the body, action performed by our speech, action performed even by our mind, the thoughts. It refers to all these actions at the level of the, kaya, vacha, manasa, we say in Sanskrit, at the level of the body, mind, and speech. Basically, that is karma. But again, I gave this simple example. If you study for exam, you will pass the exam. If you don't study for the exam, you will fail the exam. Or if you cheat in the exam, then also you will either pass the exam or you'll get caught and become debarred from the exam. In all the cases, there is a clear correlation between the action and the result. So the action by definition is one which gives some result. There is a result, that is karma phala. So you cannot differentiate, you cannot, it is only in a sense of, for intellectual understanding we speak about karma and we speak about karma phala, but they are together. So this is a very big debate that we have today, is about fate versus free will, whether fate is important or free will is important. uh, uh, but they are both same phenomenon. Their only difference is with respect to time. What we call as fate is the fruits of action which was performed in the past, and what is we calling as application of free will is we doing the action in the present time whose fruit we will bear in the future. So this is basically karma, and if we have to be very logical, then we will realize that all our actions are not bearing fruit in this very life. There are so many actions which are not bearing fruit immediately. So that means that if actions have to bear fruit and all actions are not bearing the fruit in this life, then there needs to be another life. There needs to be many other lives like that. And because not, for example, one person is born super rich and another person is born super poor. So what makes this difference? This again goes back to our previous karma in the previous lives. So the the notion of karmic cycle, the cycle of birth and death and rebirth, it has its basis in the notion of, in the understanding of karma. And we live in the cycle. I mean, we cannot exist without action. We are existing in action, and so we have to understand that the more we understand the necessity and importance of action, and for some people take it in a very wrong way that everything is you know uh, past life karma, we cannot do anything now. So that is again an improper understanding of action. So if you did some karma in the past, and if you are facing the fruit of that action today, that is fine, but you still have in your hands how you react to those situations. Every situation, there are multiple number of ways you can react, multiple number of options you may choose. So it is in your hands to actually choose whatever action you want to choose. And and kind of, there are ways. For example, this is how astrology, for example, works. Jyotisha, it tries to predict your future based on your past action, and try to suggest some solutions wherein we can counteract those fruits from your past actions. So these all have logical basis, and the more we understand, it is better for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, coming to this beautiful thing where it describes about Mula Prakriti, that something that is unmanifested part, and then the manifestations which we see in this world that we have, and it says in your book very beautifully that the Purusha creates separately the rays of consciousness. So, the rays of consciousness that you're talking about, what are these rays of consciousness, and how would one understand them if they want? If they want to? As a prana created all objects, Purusha creates separately the rays of consciousness. So are these the 7 rays that we are talking about? So what are these rays of consciousness?
Yes, I think this is a quote from Gaudapadacharya Karika, if I am not wrong.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah. It's been long time I wrote this book, so if I remember correctly, then the Karika, if I understood correctly, it is basically speaking about, of course, at the absolute level, the Karika elsewhere says that there is no creation, no bondage, no liberation. There is non-duality alone. But here, for the purpose of explaining for we people who are still attached to the world, it is saying that look, you can conceive of this universe in 2 ways. That one is the creation of the material objects, whatever it is, without consciousness, and a separate creation of consciousness, separate manifestation, not creation, separate manifestation of consciousness in every way. The first mantra of Ishopanishad says, Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam Yatkincha Jagatyam Jagat. That is, Isha, the Lord or Ishvara, is here everywhere in whatever that moves, all the objects of the universe. So it is basically saying the same thing in a sense that first there is a creation of the material objects, and then there is an inhabiting of those material objects and material realms by the consciousness. That is Chit or Brahman. But a higher understanding in a sense is that and we do not actually differentiate between Purusha and Prakriti at a higher level. That we say in the Vedanta that Brahman Yato va bhutani jayante, the Taittiriya Upanishad says, Brahman is the material cause as well as the intelligent or intellectual, not intellectual, instrumental cause of the universe. So that is one way of understanding. And another way we say also same thing, that Brahman by its power of Maya, the world was created as an appearance. So however you look at it, the point is, I think in Gita, Bhagavan Krishna says, I live in the hearts of all beings, in the hridaya of all beings. The heart is not the physical heart, the heart is refers to the seat of consciousness within each of us. So all of them, basically they are speaking about how there is the chit principle or the consciousness principle everywhere, even in an inanimate object, in a conventional way, we speak about animate objects and inanimate objects, jiva and ajivas. But what Vedanta says that chit or the Satchidananda, the chit aspect, the jnanam aspect, that is there everywhere, even both in chit, both in animate as well as inanimate. Only difference is that in an animate, that is in jivas like us, that chit is manifesting form. But in the other, what is called as Jadavastu, the inanimate objects, it is an unmanifested state. For example, a rock or a stone, it is there. Bhagavan is there, but he is not in a manifest. And this also has this understanding is at the root of our practice of Murti Puja also. If you see, whenever we do not simply go and worship any stone just like that, we do a prana pratishtapana, avahanam of the deity into that stone, into that pratima, right? So if it was not possible for the consciousness to exist in the pratima, then the whole Murti Puja does not work, right?
Doesn't work, yeah. It's as good as a stone. So we don't, just because it's not into the level of our understanding of consciousness, we feel it's like it doesn't have consciousness. And now there is also the science, the whole understanding of consciousness as where they put the brain to be the center of consciousness, and you have all this neuroscientists working, trying to find the seat of consciousness. So, what is your opinion when science comes in with a perspective on consciousness and wants to quantify it, as opposed to what we read and know from the texts that we know?
The scientific view is a very mechanistic and materialistic view, kind of what was expressed by the Charvakas in the past. So that view, see, they have a essential understanding that the physical universe is the reality alone, and they work from that perspective. And I think that perspective is faulty, and no matter how advanced the neuroscience gets, if they do not kind of get rid of this basic assumption that somehow the chemicals in the brain manifest the mind and the consciousness, they will be stuck, they will be going round and round, and they will be there itself. But I think now many of us, even in the scientific field, many of them are realizing that consciousness is distinct from the body mind complex, and hopefully they work towards that. But I think we all have a fundamental tendency, which is an incorrect tendency, to judge what is correct or wrong, what is true or false on the basis of science, and or more properly on the basis of empiricism, wherein you have this notion of falsifiability and verifiability. See, for example, if I say God exists, people ask, where is the proof? The kind of proof that they are asking is basically is a pratyaksha pramana. Can you see God? Can you hear? Can we touch? Or can you scientifically prove in a laboratory experiment? But Ishvara, I am not speaking about the Christian theology, so I will not bring it here. But purely from a Hindu perspective, Ishvara is by definition atindriya. He is beyond the senses. In the Ishopanishad itself, use, and I think it is the fourth or fifth mantra. Uh, it explains Atman as the faster than the mind, which runs faster than the mind, faster than the senses, and wherever you go, it is already there. These are the beautiful metaphors to explain something which is beyond explanation, which is beyond the grasp of the mind, grasp of the sense. So how can so that which is beyond the grasp of the senses can be established or proved by using laboratory methods or pratyaksha? Our in Hindu school itself, for example, Nayayika, the Nyaya school, they try to provide proof for the existence of Ishvara through inference, which is Anumana. That is still acceptable. But you cannot prove it by scientific methods. You cannot prove it by rooting yourself in pratyaksha, that is what is visible to your senses. And the second problem here is, let us, for example, take up all these rishis and yogis who have had divine vision, right? And theoretically, at least, we assume that if we all do sadhana, it is possible for us to perceive the deity. For example, we had Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, who conversed with Mahakali, and who is known to have said that she is more real to me than anybody else. Now, even in his case, or in his case, yes, the Devi appeared, okay. But what about we common people? If somebody we have a vision, do we even have the capacity to digest that experience? Forget digest. Will we even believe it? We will. There is a in Kannada movies and serials there is a comedy kind of thing. The Bhagwan appears and they say prove it. They will ask the Bhagwan to prove yourself. The, the point is, even if a deity appears in front of us for our sake, there takes a form and comes to us, we will not believe that it is a deity. We have had avatars like Krishna and Rama. But did Duryodhana accept that Krishna is avatar even though he saw that form in the Sabha?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So this is the thing. This is the nature of Maya. This is how the universe has been built by Ishvara. to fool all of us. We are all living in ignorance, and the Mahamaya, the Devi Mahamaya, she takes delight in uh, for those who are fools, she will continue to dilute them. But those who take refuge in her, then she gives her anugraha, then you will be blessed with the guru, blessed with all the capability, all the paths will open up for you to actually realize it. So yes, it is. So this is the how it is. So the science, because that was, yeah, I kind of digress. The science,
No, no, that's fine because I have this idea, like, because I know that science tries, it's more like prove it, right? So that's empiricism that you talked about. It's a bigger problem because unless you identify these abstract notions, you cannot really, not even, you have to identify these that they exist, to say, like prana, for example, that is the first thing of acceptance that yes, there is prana, and then everything follows in from there. But science, I feel, has a long way to go because it doesn't want to accept it because there's no proof to it.
uh,
Um,
that is an unfortunate thing. I mean, for example, for the science, prana means merely the breathing.
hmm,
The air we breathe, take in and take out. That is prana, yes, but that is only a sthula. That is the gross manifestation of
yes, yeah,
prana, not the real essence, right?
no,
So, but this is why I find it deeply problematic that a lot of people expect our Hindu Dharma and our philosophy and our knowledge. I would not even call it philosophy in a sense. So, philosophy, in a sense, it is kind of trying to speculate. It has a speculation element in it, that we are trying to speculate, we are trying to try to understand what is reality. But our darshanas, our knowledge systems, they have been given to us from our rishis. The Veda is Apaurushaya, but even others, uh, these were the knowledge which have been discovered and given to us. There is no scope for speculation. There is only scope for understanding and growing in that knowledge. Discovering newer aspects of that knowledge. Because so that is it. So I would not say these are speculations. So we have the knowledge, our ancestors have given this knowledge. So now it is for up to us how much we grow. So we do not need. I was giving a talk somewhere, and there somebody asked me, a lot of good work has been done today, that people are realizing that Hinduism is scientific. Our Lord Shiva is Bhagwan Shiva is dark matter and dark energy and all. I had to, unfortunately, on the open space, I had to tell her down, look, this is misleading, let us not do this. Let us not reduce our deities to just dark matter, dark, right?
yeah.
This becomes hugely problematic. We have to understand dharma, we have to understand adhyatma on its own basis without um, any kind of pollution from other sources. I am not saying that comparative study is wrong, but to do comparative study, you have to first understand each system, or at least our own system on its own basis, and then you can
And
do
in
the
depth, and
comparative.
in depth also, it's not that you just study it on the superficial level and you just go, because you have to study something in depth to be able to then draw out aspects and commonalities across everything. Because most people that you find, they have a very superficial understanding of it, which is what creates, and this confusion, because you don't know anything in depth. And that's a bigger problem, I feel, or I find that to be a bigger problem.
Yes, yes, definitely. Sorry. Uh, the lack of deeper study and engagement with the text is another issue that we all have. We are happy with a superficial engagement. I mean, it's funny that many people come to me with some kind of questions like, uh, I am debating somebody, they are equating this concept of Hindu Dharma with Christianity, with this, with that. Can you give me a response to this? I said, why would I give you a response to that? Go and study the text, right? They're not willing to engage with the text for knowledge sake. What they just want to do a brownie points on a internet debate. So that is problematic. Otherwise, I'm mostly open. I respond to all genuine questions, but these kind of questions I don't.
You don't have to. So let's come back to this very interesting, and this is one of my favorite concepts, which is of the absolute, the unmanifested. Now, Isha Upanishad, I think one of the verses very clearly talks about that if you really focus on the formless, then you just also get a very part understanding of of the universe or of yourself, of the eternity. You always have to, it's like a journey, so you have to go from form into the formless, and so what are your thoughts on the fact that how should one approach this, because this absolute with a capital A, the unmanifested, is something that is beyond us, it's beyond all forms. So when it talks about understanding this formlessness, or formless, or however, absolute, the capital absolute, Brahman you talk about, is it just about intellectually understanding it, or is it just about knowing it? How would you describe it?
This is a very loaded question, a very difficult question, I would say, because there are a lot of different ways to understand. For example, in Bhagavad Gita, it speaks about three kinds of Brahman, and I forgot the exact term. Kshara Purusha, Akshara Purusha, and Uttama Purusha. It speaks about three different levels. So basically, Kshara Purusha, or the phrases that I like to use because of its connotation, is Karya Brahman, Karana Brahman, and the highest Para Brahman. Karya basically means effect, which is this manifestation. So whatever Jagat we see is the effect, or the effect from a cause. That cause is what is called as Karana Brahman, or which is associated with Mula Prakriti, right? Now we have this. There is Brahman inhabiting in the universe that we are perceiving, but also there is Brahman who is the cause of this universe. But beyond these two intellectually categorization, there is the higher version, that is Parabrahman, who is beyond this duality, right? So as long as we are in this duality, the duality of cause and effect, and then the teaching is that go beyond the effect to the cause. But even staying as a cause is also problematic as a subject. You have to go beyond that. That is, travel from duality to non-duality. I know it is bit of abstract. It is bit of difficult to explain.
It is abstract because the concept is so abstract, because it is beyond our senses, and I love abstractness because I don't know, I have a fascination for it. So I thought you're the right person to talk about this, because many people get confused about this. It's confusing because they are like, well, but then this is, so how would you, so yeah, you're going on, so I shouldn't disturb you, go on.
A good example I would explain in a very simple way. In the waking state, I am there, I am identified with my body mind complex and interact with the world. But when I am asleep, I'm dreaming something, I am in a different world of the dream world, and I have a different dream body, and I identify with that dream body, right? As long as I am in that dream, that is real. This waking, they do not exist, right? But when I am in the deep sleep state called Shushupti, there is nothing, no object. But when I get up from the deep sleep, I have a memory in the sense, I had a very good night's sleep. I did not even dream, it was very good sleep. How do we know that we had a good sleep when there was nothing? There must be something, right? And that something is our own real self, the witness. So that witness is present in the waking state, that witness is present in the dreaming state, that witness is also present in the deep sleep state. Now, you see that the witness is the subject, the other things are object, including our body and mind. So for explanation, we can say that, look, you have to go beyond this, the body mind complex, and attain that self, which is the witness, Sakshi. But Sakshi, the terminology or the state of Sakshi itself, is also a limitation, because if you identify yourself as Sakshi, then you are still in a kind of a duality, even though the object is no longer exists. That is what happens in a deep sleep state. The Sakshi exists as Sakshi, but there is no object. But Sakshi is still a Sakshi. It has not transcended. So when we speak in the Vedanta, when we speak of Brahma Jnana, Brahma Vidya, Atma Jnana, Aprokshanubhuti, whatever the terms you use, the ultimate knowledge, the highest knowledge, the self-knowledge, the knowledge which the Upanishad reveals, the Tattvamasi, you are Brahman. What it says when you say you are Brahman, it is saying that you, with the self, the Atman, not the body mind complex, is Brahman. That is the ultimate reality. So, the need is to go beyond the duality. And how does it happen? It does not happen merely intellectually. Yes, it happens at the level of knowledge, but here the knowledge, when it's a good example is that of a 10-man, there is a anecdote used in Advaita Parampara, teaching Parampara. Some 10 people cross the river and then they count whether all of them have crossed. Whoever is counting, he's not counting himself but counting all others and saying, oh, only 9 of them, where is the other one? Now somebody else from the village comes and he makes them all stand and then he counts. Look, all of you are there, 10 are there. That is what the Guru does. He gives the Upanishad from the Shruti saying that you are that. That is the knowledge. You are thinking that you are not Brahman, but the Shruti gives you knowledge that you are Brahman. However, so that is why the tradition says this Shruti is the only Pramana, Shastra Pramana is the only Pramana that reveals this knowledge. But what happens is, because we are very much attached to the body-mind complex, this knowledge is still indirect to us. We just intellectually understand. Because of our own limitations, because of our mental limitations, physical limitations, psychological limitations. So then we have to work ourselves, and once we attain that competency, which is in the form of sadhana chatushtaya, viveka, vairagya, etc., then when the teacher gives the same knowledge, and we have done Shravana Manana Nididhyasa, then there is a Jnana Vritti of the form of Akhandakara Vritti. I mean, I know this is a terminology jargon, you said.
No, that's fine. People will find out when they read it.
Basically, what happens is there is a Jnana Vritti inside us. That Jnana Vritti basically, Vritti means the thought, so to speak. Thoughts are also Vritti. That vritti removes this duality. It's a vritti of non-duality, wherein we perceive that aham brahmasmi, I am atma brahma, or as the Upanishad, I think 5th or 6th verse says, right? My atman exists in all beings and all beings exist in my atman. That vision comes as jnana vritti. And when that jnana vritti arises, because as a result of nididhyasana is a form of meditation, wherein you are not meditating on some object, you are meditating on Brahman itself. You are meditating on the Mahavakya, that Aham Brahmasmi, you are meditating on that. So when the Nididhyasa fructifies, there is this Jnana Vritti that Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, I am everything is me. So this knowledge vritti, the knowledge vritti of non-duality, it wipes out, it removes the vritti of duality, which is avidya, which is ignorance. And removing it, it also dies down. Both the vrittis dies down, such that our real nature shines forth without any obstruction. And that reality is non-dual. It is nirguna, nirakara, satyam, jnanam, anantam, brahma, whatever description. Now, we need to distinguish here from this state is distinguished from a state of uh, this state is called as turiyam as a reference. It is, see, when we are speaking now, we use lot of things. It is not that it exists as a separate thing. It is there in all states. Turiyam is there in all states, but because of avidya we don't realize it. The atman is there even now when I am speaking. It is just that I don't realize that because I am identifying with my body complex. I hope I did not make it more complex.
No. No, this is beautiful because that's what people talk about. They talk about the lower self and the higher self. So they say that we all have our lower selves and our higher selves. And this brings me to this very interesting question, which I did ask you last year as well. And I'm going to come to it. So a major part of the work then says that you have to really control and be mindful of your lower states, which are to do with the body and your needs and your desires. And you always should aim to get to the higher states of consciousness and, of oneness and the state of Brahman, basically, to live a life like that. It's always this debate and it's always this balancing act that you need to do. And we are all governed by the karma principle. Now, here comes the very interesting. I mean, I always call it my interesting question. I called it my interesting question last year as well, which is the question of guru. So, in Sanskrit, it's basically translates as from darkness to light, guru. And then this Upanishad talks about guru as in, somebody who basically takes you into the light and gives you that information. And it describes beautifully the qualities that that a guru has, like compassion, kindness, and love, and those kind of qualities. Somebody who doesn't differentiate between people and individuals, and so on and so forth. So my question to you is this: so the higher self in each of us is pretty much the light itself, if we like to call it that. So then, guru means what? The guru is it referring to guru as a conscious state in each of us to be able to pull ourselves from darkness to light, or is it really referring to another human being, another individual outside of us who is going to act as our guide? How does it work, in your opinion?
Yeah, it works in multiple ways, in all of the ways that you mentioned. For most of us, a guru begins with a human teacher, because that is how, because we are not advanced enough to do things on our own. For someone like Dattatreya, the birds and the animals and whatever happening in the nature were guru. He learned on his own by seeing these phenomena. But we are not that advanced people. So for us, we need proper teaching, proper upadesham from the guru. So for us, the guru is a human guru. As the Upanishad says, when you are ready, when you have realized that the world is unreal, world is temporary, and you want to attain this permanent bliss, the highest reality, then you have to approach a guru who is Shrotriya and Brahmanishta, that is, who is well versed in the Shastras, so that he can teach you correctly. But he is also one who is Brahmanishta, one who is already realized the highest, so that he can actually give you proper tailor made teaching, so that you kind of take your hand and guide you there. So guru begins there as a guru in a human form. But then guru is also your innermost self as well. The Upanishads, for example, speak about Angushta Matra Purusha. Angushta Matra means the thumb sized Purusha who lives in all of us. When Krishna says, I stay in the heart of all beings, it is this Angushta Matra Purusha, I think, which Sri Aurobindo, I have not read Aurobindo much, but if I understood correctly, he calls this as a psychic being which is inside us. So in the Upanishads, they say that the Angushta Mata Purusha, or the Buddhi, it manifests in the cave of the heart of all beings. It is this Angushta Mata Purusha, and it can take any form. It can take the form of a Kali. If your Ishta is Kali, it can take up any deity. If you are doing a deity worship, a mantra upasana, then the power of mantra upasana is such that deity manifests. You become identified with the deity. So that Angushta Mata Purusha itself manifests like that. So this Angushta Mata Purusha is also a guru. In a real sense, it is the guru, because it is the true controller. She is the true controller of you. And the more you do sadhana, then you are more able to understand the instructions of that inner guru. When we speak of inner guru, and this is it, when we are more able to understand our inner guru, more able to align ourselves with the teachings of that inner guru. Now, there is another way of also looking at it. For example, in the Vedanta tradition, the highest guru is Dakshinamurti. I have written a book on that.
Right? Yeah.
So, and who is this Dakshinamurti? He is one who teaches, imparts the highest knowledge silently, and he imparts it silently. But take the word Dakshinamurti, Dakshina Amurti, and there I have given a different ways of defining that. And in one way of understanding is that I mentioned you about the Akhandakara Vritti Jnana, right? Dakshinamurti is that Akhandakara Vritti Jnana. It is that Vritti Jnana which reveals, which removes avidya and reveals the real self as it is. That Vritti Jnana is also Guru because
Yeah.
Dakshinamurti is that Vritti Jnana. Dakshina also means eye, right?
Mm.
It is a eye. It is a eye of knowledge, and that eye of knowledge is nothing but Akhandakara Vritti Jnana, the Vritti which reveals Akhandakaratva, the that non-duality, so to speak, for the lack of better word. So, Guru can be. It starts as an external Guru, and if you are in the upasana of a deity, then there comes a point wherein the deity itself becomes your Guru, and you become identified with the deity. And then the deity itself, in many cases, gives you the ultimate upadesha also. Uh, for moksha, the ultimate Guru upadesha is needed in the form of Mahavakya upadesha, Tattvamasi, and that upadesha is also given by the deity itself. Then that person need not have a human guru. It is possible from a human guru. It is also possible from a divine reality, divine being itself, from Ishvara itself. And the
Yeah.
Ishvara is nothing but itself.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So it is pretty much that the inner, everything is about the work that you do, how you live, how you carry on your journey in this body, in this life, and what are the karmas that you have got, which have gotten you here, and how you understand, and how you basically living a life which is conscious, not living completely delusional and just doing whatever you feel like, because everything has got an effect, every cause has an effect, and that's what rules all of us. So tell me, I want to ask about, like, see, it's already been an hour, and I told you, like, we can't really finish everything in an hour. It just stretches on. So I'll just hold on for a few more minutes. So this concept of Hiranyagarbha, which is a concept that I personally love, a concept which is like, it's again very abstract, and I don't know why I have this strange, fondness for everything that's abstract. But Hiranyagarbha. So I haven't read that much. I'm not very well versed with Hindu texts and with the text shastras as such. So, but I know Hiranyagarbha is mentioned in Theosophy as the golden egg. That's how HPB puts it, as the golden egg, the seat of creation, basically, as she calls it. So, what is your opinion, and what do the Shastras talk about Hiranyagarbha? Because it goes as in this particular Ishopanishad as well, as the seat of the unmanifested bits. So, what are your thoughts on Hiranyagarbha?
Yeah, I think a better translation would be the golden womb. Garbha
Okay.
means womb, right? So, yeah, seat of creation, as you put it. Uh, the Hiranyagarbha is a wonderful concept. It's not just a concept; it's a wonderful reality. As I said, there is no concept; there is only
Yeah.
reality. And the texts like Manusmriti or even the Upanishads, they all speak about how, for example, we speak of Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, right? And one who looks after
Creates.
the
Yeah.
Srishti, one who maintains, and one who destroys. Now, all of them are actually Hiranyagarbha itself.
Mm.
There are three modes of understanding Hiranyagarbha. Because it is, we speak about in the Upanishads and all, we speak about the life of Brahma, right? When Brahma is awake, the Srishti happens, and the night of Brahma, when Brahma is asleep, there is a pralaya or destruction. So that Brahma is Hiranyagarbha only. It is a manifestation from Hiranyagarbha, or there are different ways of putting it, same things, right? So it is what, when we speak about Brahmaloka, for example, it is speaking about the Hiranyagarbha. So we return to the home. It is the home. It is our mother's womb. We return.
Mm.
We are today or tomorrow. We have to go back to our home, our
Yeah.
rightful place, right?
Yeah.
So basically, what we need to understand, and this Hiranyagarbha exists in each of us.
Yes.
Remember, I spoke about the cave of the heart, right? In the heart is a seat of consciousness wherein the consciousness manifests. That seat is Hiranyagarbha. And what is manifesting is the buddhi. In our sense, is the Angushta Matra Purusha. The Purusha is manifesting, right? So basically, these are different ways of pointing out an essential reality that look, there is Purusha, there is Brahman, there is divine at the source. and we need to return to that source, so to speak. uh, this journey of going out and coming back, returning back home, it is also a teaching from within the vyavaharika, within the transactional dual world itself. Because absolutely speaking, as Gaudapadacharya says, uh, na srishti, there is no srishti, there is no creation, there is no liberation, there is no bondage, there is nothing. The for example, when uh, for a, we dream, when you enter a dream state, when we come out of the dream does not exist. There was no creation per se of the dream.
Mm.
Just perceived it. The Christy is also like that. There is no real creation. It's all appearance. So Brahman, as a Brahman, it does not affect the Brahman. It does not affect our real self, which is non-different from Brahman.
Yeah.
But yeah, so but in a conventional sense, we say that no, look, we have traveled, we have made this journey, we have fallen, so to speak, or we have come out of that Hiranyagarbha,
Yeah.
and now we have to return
Go
back to that
back, go
Hiranyagarbha.
back. Yeah, which is what every day
Yes.
these days I'm getting up and I'm like one day closer to expiry, like I get to expire, I'm just walking one day closer to it. How beautifully put. Thank you. That was beautiful because HPV also talks about, so what I want everybody who's listening to this or whenever they listen to this is to understand that these are universal principles and they are applicable to all of us. They are not just for some people and not, this is for everybody. If everybody tries to live life with these universal principles, the world will be a beautiful place. I mean, we all will be sort of walking each other home and that would be beautiful. So tell me, Nithin, like writing a text like this and, working so hard on this for so many years, there are bound to be internal changes. I mean, there's no second thoughts or doubts about like how this might have changed you for the individual that you were when you started thinking about it to today. So if you would like to share a few of your personal moments and journey through while you were putting this together.
Well, I don't have any much claims about any big transformations or some spiritual achievements per se. But yes, at an individual level, as you said, the beauty of the Shastras is that the more you engage with it, it may be writing, it may be studying, it may be reflecting, whatever forms you do. But the more you engage with it, there is a deep effect on your psyche, on your thought process, on your character, on your personality, and it is so subtle that you don't even realize it. So that is how it has been with me as well. So in a sense, yes, I have grown with this text, but I have grown. I would not say that I have grown with only this text, but rather than I would say I have grown with my engagement with the text. It may be the Upanishads, it may be Dharma Shastras, for example, Manusmriti, or it may be my other readings of other texts in the Itihasa Purana, for example, Mahabharata, or or the works of Adi Shankaracharya, or even other modern conversations with Ramana Maharshi. So these are all help me to clarify, to bring clarity to my own life. And I think the most important clarity or most important lesson that I have learned is to align myself, align my life to the framework of Purushartha, to evaluate my own actions, my own thoughts, and my life on the basis of Purushartha, uh, um, whether I'm aligned to only pursuing Artha and Kama in an isolated manner, whether pursuing of Dharma is important to me, whether my whole life is serving some deeper meaning and purpose, whether it is aligned to the ultimate goal of moksha in some way or the other. I think that this is why an engagement with the Shastras is needed, because ultimately all theory boils down to how you live your life, whether you are living your life in a unethical manner, whether you're living your life ethical manner, and whether how far you're able to translate the theoretical understanding into practice. And it is never easy. Giving lecture is easy, talking here is easy. doing it is never easy, and there are no easy answers. I mean, uh, the Shastras give general guidelines, so to speak, but that guideline have to be individualized, personalized to our own situations, and no two persons are same, no two situations are same.
Yeah, beautiful. That's beautifully put. And when you sort of were writing these texts together, you were putting these together, and in terms of your own experience with living through these verses, and because like it has an impact, it is bound to have an impact. So living with these verses and everything. So to you, when you first started to now, since you're finished, and since you have spent so much time with it, do you see yourself changing? Do you see yourself questioning and kind of keeping that check at everything that you do? Or is it like a gradual, like you've calmed down and you're more like, okay, I know I'm on the track? How does it feel for you?
Uh, my romance with Shastra, so to speak, is still continuing, and it is not said and done. Uh, the more I study, the more I reflect, and the more I realize that there is so much in it, and so much guidelines, so much beneficial to us, that it is unfortunate that we have uh, uh, sidelined the Shastras from our life today. Yeah. So it is always my attempt that whenever I discover something new, then I go on Facebook and write a paragraph or write an article. Some people have branded me orthodox and mad and whatnot. But at a individual level, yes, it has definitely changed me in a sense. It has definitely made me more rooted in my own our own culture, philosophy, and sadhana. But ultimately, as I said, I would not say about just this text as an individual. I would comment as my whole engagement with the Shastra, and this, of course, always will have Isha Upanishad will always have a special place, because this was the first text that I studied in a more depth manner. And before that, it was more like bit here, bit there, bit everywhere. But it was proper study I did, and I have gained immensely from the. For example, one of the most important insight that I gained from this Upanishad is the importance of karma anushthan. The doing dharma, aligning yourself with dharma, and how you should do your actions. I mean, I won't say that I have succeeded, but at least I try to see that I do my duties. I do it in a fulfilling manner, and I I am not sure I am able to do it in a nishkama format. I am not yet there, but at least I try to realize my duties, and this year the study of this Upanishad uh, flows into my study of Dharma Shastra. Because the beauty or the uniqueness of this Upanishad is that though the primary primary goal of any Upanishad is to teach the ultimate Brahma Vidya, this Upanishad also teaches kinds of provides a bird's eye view that to attain that you have to first work on yourself. First, you have to work in the level of the karma, and so I am doing that right now, so to speak, focusing on dharma, so that hopefully hoping that I will attain the needed competencies in some life in future to work on that also.
I'm pretty sure you will. I'm pretty sure you will. And do you think, because I know you're also one of the, chief curator of the Advaita Academy, which has beautiful presentations and beauty. Like you just finished Vanadi Shankaracharya Festival series. I've heard few of those talks. Um, Later, I couldn't be there in person for some of them, but they were amazing. And they talk a lot about, there were these modern, like a combination of the ancient texts into the modern world. So this amalgamation was beautiful, and you had people who were talking about the principles that they use in business that can be used across, in the life that we live. So do you feel at some point that teaching or even having a conversation with the Shastras is something that should become mainstream and that should be introduced into our education system, because this was our education system at one point, but slowly it kind of died out and we became more into, we kind of forget about these. We, half of us, including me, we know how to read, but we can't really understand what the meaning of Sanskrit, the verses are, and it's a big shame. So do you see it returning back into the mainstream for us to gain that, to be aligned basically, so not make it so difficult and go so far away from reality?
I at least hope so. I don't know whether it will be reality or not, considering the kind of socio-political conditions. But there are definitely good signs in the sense of we are now promoting a lot of Indian knowledge systems. There are courses on that, and some colleges have, including Chinmaya with Vishwavidyapit, and they are working on this IKS systems and all. But what I feel is there is the, the cause of our fall, so to speak, is that our we have our parent generation and their parent generation kind of we have focused so much on earning a living and making money and all those things, settling ourselves in life and all. We have forgotten our values. These values were, for example, imparted through stories by our grandmothers and all, but that is no longer a reality, right? So we need to reinvent this wheel and forget about school, college, or whatever. At home, this could be, that the parents have to take initiative to study the text, to introduce this. See, the best text to introduce to children are Itihasa Puranas, and the Itihasa Puranas are also the best text to introduce even the adults, because
Yeah,
they are
I agree. Yeah, I fall in that category. I agree.
so, and they are so encyclopedic in nature, and they have so much material to reflect upon. uh, why is Mahabharata famous even today? We have so many retellings, some very bad retellings that are being published, but still, the very fact that retellings are there, it shows that people have not had enough of Mahabharata, enough of Draupadi, Yudhishthira, Pandava, Karna, whatever it is. But unfortunately, there is also a tendency today to glorify those who should not be glorified and to demonize those who are to be glorified. For example, we have Ravana being upholded as
Oh
a
yeah.
great feminist, and Rama is being abused as
Yes.
a some kind of wife.
Somebody who didn't stand up for his wife, somebody who just asked her to go into the forest and abandoned his wife. What kind of a man is he? I mean, like, for us to understand what Rama was, I think we would probably take like 100 lifetimes.
And the worst is people don't read Ramayana and they make all these comments, and that is and many of them make these comments after watching serials.
Yeah.
And today, this serials promote animal rights and all these rights issues uh, by distorting the text. For one example, is there was a serial Siya Ke Ram, wherein uh, some Ashwamedha is being conducted and Rama gives a great lecture about how animals should not be killed in a sacrifice and all. See, this is complete concoction. This is not present in Ramayana. And in Ramayana, when later he does this yagyas, he does the sacrifice. There is no doubt about it. It is part of the ritual procedure, right? So we do not need this. There is a lot of distortion also. So today we have to be very careful. There is a lot of material available, but there is also a lot of fake news. A lot of distortions are also available. So, but most importantly, people have to develop interest. I mean, we have been in India at least. We are still living in a colonial education system, and a completely commercialized, consumeristic perspective approach to life, and this has to make way for Purushartha framework so that everything is in balance.
Yeah, because we do have an imbalance now, and you can clearly see it because people have all these notions, and it's like everybody feels their opinion is so important and so valued. But the fact is that substantiate your opinion, and that time nobody has, and nobody wants to give that time to be able to go to the text and find out what reality is and what is it written. But It's more like challenging the system, but you cannot challenge a system unless you really know the depths from what it stems out of. That's what I feel. So I would be more than happy to sort of see these texts coming back in a mainstream education system, because for us it's like it's too late starting on with this, and it's like a whole new generation that's coming up which should know these, not what someone's opinion on on the social media. That's not it. There is a lot more which is in the books, which is what they were written about. So hopefully we'll get there someday. I have a lot of hope, as usual. I don't know. I don't know how far it's going to materialize and whether we'll see it or not. But we'll get there. So any last thoughts, Nithin? I know we have run past an hour, but any last thoughts? And thank you for staying back.
No, I extremely enjoyed the session, and hope we can do more of this and more often. Any last thoughts? I think I would request everyone to buy my book, engage with it, reflect upon it. The book has been written more for. See, there are many books on Isha Upanishad. There are commentaries by traditional acharyas. Yes, but my attempt, a humble attempt, I would not compare this with all of their great works. But this book tries to kind of introduce the text to even those who do not know, and tries to be of a reflective kind. I mean, I have included a lot of material going beyond the textual limitations of the text, and for example, the section of samskaras, the section of karmanushtana, the section on what happens if you are into adharma, the kind of
Yeah.
fate,
I think, yeah, that was the path to suffering, the third part, where you really explain, like, how, what is it that if you don't want to go the path where you're aware of what you're doing and you just spend it. So I personally thought that this was, sorry to cut you out, you complete, I'll give my verdict later.
Yeah, I mean, these are the things that you would not find in any other books, any other Isha books on Isha Upanishad, because people have mainly concentrate on the 18 mantras itself. So, and I have tried to put in a contemporary perspective where possible. So I hope more and more people will read this book and share your feedback. If you have read this book, share your feedback on Amazon, Goodreads, everywhere. It helps to give more visibility to the book. Yeah, that's all I think.
Thank you. No, I'm pretty sure everybody should buy. And my personal view is like the writing of it is like very unique. So I personally have read a few commentaries, like even the Secret Doctrine, which talks about, it starts with the stanzas and then it goes into describing it. It's a whole section on commentaries later. But this one, the structure is more appealing to me. Like it's more like you have the word to word translation of the verses and then the summary, and then it talks about the philosophy. So you could even start with the philosophy if you are well versed, so it's a choice that you make when you pick this book up to read. And like Nithin said, the examples are very contemporary. It's very today's world, and you would associate and read, like, for example, the ropes and snakes. We have had so much, of this example, especially the ropes and the snakes one, and used in different parts of Vedanta and everything. So it's very easy to understand. And one of my favorite one was the potter and the clay, and like, who's witnessing what. And I thought that was very interesting because you can visualize it, and that makes it easier for you to understand what is being said, even if you don't understand the Sanskrit meaning of the word, and if it appears abstract. But I love abstract, like Hiranyagarbha, the golden egg, or the womb, and the Holy Trinity. I love it. So thank you very much for writing this, and thank you very much for taking the time out and to chat to me. So thank you very much for your time, Nithin.
Thank you. Thank you.